regular meeting of the Southern Shores Town Council for, the Southern Shores Town Council for September the 2nd, 2014 is now in session. Good evening. I would ask you, if you wish to speak tonight, to please take time to sign up after the Pledge of Allegiance and the moment of silence. If you'd please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Please join me in a moment of silence. Thank you. A couple of minor, I'll call them housekeeping functions before I ask council to approve the agenda or approve the agenda with a slight modification. One of them is that we, you may know this, Charter has asked for a $1.50 a month increase in our rates for our television service. They plan to impose that. They haven't asked for it. They're going to do it because their costs are rising, they say. The other thing is we had our National Flood Insurance Program community assistance visit back in December of 2012, and with the same sort of dispatch, these things happen. We finally got the letter today saying that we have a good floodplain management program in place. Not a high priority, but something we're required by law to maintain and do it properly, and they found us to be in compliance. Last thing, that our current census, that's the best estimate of our census of our population in Southern Shores, is 2,846 people, which is up some, I think, from the previous census. I'm almost certain it is. Council, I'd ask you to for a motion to approve the agenda. Once I make one minor modification under new business, paragraph A, recommendation of the Capital Improvement Committee. Originally we're going to delete the Southern Walkways component of the Fairway Drive Improvement Project. Now I'm asking you to consider deleting all the walkways at Fairway Drive and Dogwood Trail, and one of our CIP members will make a motion to that effect when we get to that item on the agenda. But that would be the only change I'd make, council. Can I have a motion to approve the agenda?
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you. I need a motion to approve the consent agenda, council.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you. Staff reports, Town Planner, Mr. Haskett.
Thank you and good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. I have a brief report for you tonight for the month of August. There were 10 zoning permits issued, 21 building permits issued, which consisted of 4 new single-family dwellings, 3 additions, and 14 others. There are currently 13 single-family dwellings under construction in the town of Southern Shores, and the total amount of fees collected in August was $10,483.60. Any questions?
Thank you very much, Wes. Chief Cole.
Good evening. I asked Jennifer to try and make that a little bigger so I didn't have to buy dollar store glasses, but I guess that'll be the best we can get for right now. The report for the police department for the month of August 2014, we had a total calls for service of 930. That's about 111 less than we had from last year at this time. As you can see, some of the breakdowns, officers conducted 245 business checks, another 62 residence checks. We had 16 mutual aid calls from other agencies. 19 traffic direct, 24 suspicious conditions. We responded to 11 alarms, 104 traffic stops, and another 104 extra patrols were requested. Just a breakdown of the incidents to crimes, we had 20. 7 of those were larcenies, 8 were drug violations, 1 DWI, 1 assault, 1 fraud. We had 2 arrests, 1 for larceny and 1 for DWI. Officers handed out 69 written citations and another 30 warning citations. And our community resource officer handed out 83 ordinance violations, most of those consisting of parking violations. And we responded to 8 motor vehicle traffic accidents for August. Any questions? Thank you.
Thank you, Chief. Our fire chief, our new fire chief, Mr. Limbacher. I say new, he's been in the job for a couple of months now, 3 months.
Yes, sir. Good evening, everybody. For the month of August, we had 50 total calls for service, and it breaks down pretty simply: 34 assists for rescue and EMS, 4 hazardous condition, no fire, 4 calls for service, 3 good intents, and 5 false alarm, false call, and it breaks it down even further there. You can just, it's pretty simple to read. Anybody have any questions?
Anybody? Thank you, Ed. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
We have no town boards to report tonight. The public comment section is coming up. I would remind you that we have a 3-minute time limit on public comment. At our last meeting, we had a pretty good turnout, not as good as the one we have tonight. And I appreciate your being here, by the way. We have our typical council meeting. We have somewhere between 3 and 5 people, maybe sometimes as many as 10. It's unfortunate that people don't come to our town council meetings because you don't necessarily learn anything, but you know more about what's happening in your town. It's very beneficial to you, and I say that based on my own experience. I've got a list, here comes from Sheila. I'll call your name. You'll be allowed to speak 3 minutes. Please, out of respect for your fellow attendees here tonight, try to hold it to 3 minutes if you would. That's good, thank you. I don't think it's necessary, but I'm going to say this anyway. Out of respect for you and out of respect for your fellow speakers, I would appreciate it if we would try to keep our rhetoric as civil as it was the last time in our last meeting. For the most part, you were all courteous, polite, and considerate of each other and of your council. I would expect our council to show the same respect to you. And bear in mind, we will not respond directly to your comments or your questions. That's not the way we do business. So you will be heard, but we will not respond to you individually. First person on the list is Andrew Daring, is that correct?
Darling.
I got it. Thank you, Andrew.
Thank you for allowing me to address the meeting this evening. I have been an owner in Southern Shores for 14 years. I've been a resident for about 11 years. And I'd like to say a little bit about the town. I'm personally impressed about how well David Stick of the Kitty Hawk Land Company laid out the town of the Southern Shores. And I think most people here would agree tonight. David had an eye for the natural beauty of the area. The town was planned to preserve, where possible, natural features, slopes, dunes, and of course the maritime forest. David went out of his way to preserve features to the point that on North Dogwood Trail and Gingite, and I believe a few others, the lanes separate to preserve the trees in the center. So important was the natural vegetation to the town that written into the North Carolina General Statutes is wording to preserve the trees and the shrubs that make up the maritime forest. This general statute is actually written into the town code. I thank you for considering modifying the plans that have been put forward.
as you mentioned, removal of sidewalks. But I'd like to mention a couple of concerns, recommendations that I have. Number one is I've noticed that new construction in the town, builders have been clear-cutting the lots in order to build. This seems to be in violation of the town code, but certainly does not keep in the spirit of the David Stick legacy. So if we must cut, can we please do something like Lilias Morrison mentioned last time, and that is do some replanting. Number two, I'm shocked about the plans that have been unearthed regarding Fairway Drive on the corner of North, South, and East Dogwood. Since there are virtually no safety problems to address, it seems to be a completely unnecessary expenditure of money. I therefore move a citizen's resolution to stop these projects and include the restriction of cut-through traffic until we can come up with a balanced alternative. Do I have a second? Can I hear a motion, a show of hands in favor of the motion? Aye. Anybody against? Thank you.
Thank you. Cecilia Colville.
I am Cecilia Koeleveld and I live on Gravy Pond Lane. 2 years ago, almost to the day, in 2012, I stood before you pleading for the life of 39 trees about to be removed from Gravy Pond Lane, a little street with 12 homes, much smaller than Fairway Drive, consisting of an entrance and 2 cul-de-sacs. I felt compelled to come tonight in support of the people of Fairway Drive, in the hope of sparing them the agony we endured. No one is against repairs to our roads. We know they are necessary. However, destruction is quite another thing. Yes, we lost 39 healthy old trees from Gravy Pond Lane. What we have now is an enormous entrance and a T-section. We have what we call an industrial highway to nowhere. I urge you, I ask you to spare Fairway Drive. Stop raping and mutilating Southern Shores. Stop destroying its beauty and charm, its amazing uniqueness. Taking all that away from the town and the people who chose to live there is a crime. It truly is. Thank you.
Thank you. Tom Davidson.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. I'm Tom Davidson. My wife Ellen and I have lived at Fairway Drive, 38 Extension, for 21 years. We love the unique character and charm of our street and take pride that we live where the town developer, Outer Banks historian, and first mayor of Southern Shores, David Stick, chose to make his home. We feel that our street captures and reflects all that is good about quiet, easy living in the Maritime Forest. On July 16th, the manager and engineer employed by our town presented our group of unsuspecting residents with plans to rebuild the public portion of our drive, which will forever change its character. The plan which Mayor and Council has approved will decimate the natural canopy of trees by taking down 50 trees which we and many walkers, bikers, and visitors enjoy, leaving us with largely straight-line asphalt, concrete curbs, and unnecessary stormwater swales lined with riprap. Mayor and town manager insist the plan as engineered is necessary for public safety concerns involving quick access of emergency vehicles, maneuverability, and tree location. I suggest that this seems to be the way roads are rebuilt in Southern Shores. One size fits all. The same engineering for all roads, whether in the dunes, the beach zone, Highway 12, or the woods. When shown to us, engineering was complete and plans already drawn without prior opportunity for citizen discussion or input. The town manager will tell you that Fairway Drive was included in the town of Southern Shores projection for capital improvement in year 2008 and placed in the budget cycle for 2014 and 15. And we had ample opportunity to comment or request information. I guess meeting the letter of the law, but certainly not the spirit of the law, was there to ensure public understanding and transparency. Our group of mostly long-term residents of Fairway Drive have submitted a petition against your action, signed by 91% of those neighbors directly impacted. We have written to the mayor and council and have had several face-to-face meetings with mayor and/or town manager, but nothing has changed. The mayor has informed us that council has decided to stay the course with their plan. We have not heard directly from any council members since they voted to affirm the plan 1 month ago. The sad outcome of this controversy is doubt and misgiving regarding mayor and council's commitment to the citizens of our town as we present our concerns, and more importantly, in town government's commitment to maintaining the character of our town and preserving the maritime forest of our fragile barrier island community. All should understand that the maritime forest is not just a bunch of individual trees that have grown up over years, but it's a system, the whole of which anchors our barrier island as relentless natural forces move it westward. Tree root systems are basic to that anchoring. Our deciduous maritime forest has already been split by Dogwood Trail, Duckwoods Country Club, and other infrastructure. Destroying the trees in the town rights-of-way and widening the asphalt increases that threat to this fragile system. Mayor and council, the reason we're here is about more than trees. Our greatest concern is your commitment to ensuring the character and natural beauty of our neighborhoods. You have the opportunity and wherewithal to rescind this plan, or at least to take additional time to take a closer look at it, to listen to our citizens, and to instruct the town manager and engineer to find a less destructive and better way to fix the roads in our woods. Thank you.
Thank you, Tom. William Small.
Good evening. I'm the current president of the Fairway Drive Homeowners Association. I would like to speak about the Fairway Drive Road Improvement Project. I have a background in farming and land development. Today, there are over 313 million people living in the United States. Of that population, less than 1% claim farming as an occupation. Farmers have an old saying, dry weather can hurt you, but wet weather can kill you. This is a reference to the effects that weather can have on the quality of yields of their crops. And I point this out because farmers have been controlling stormwater drainage for centuries to protect their investments. Unfortunately, the other 99% of the population doesn't seem to have that day-to-day common sense knowledge. After viewing the stormwater catch basin located on the cul-de-sac of Ocean View Loop, which is at the top of a sand dune, I'm convinced that the town of Southern Shores may need to get a second engineering proposal for the Fairway Drive repairs. Ocean View Loop was not even identified in the town's stormwater management report or listed in Table 17 of the TOS land use plan as an area with drainage problems. The Ocean View Loop catch basin is more appropriately designed for perhaps downtown Raleigh. I fear that the current plan lacks common sense approach needed for Fairway Drive. The vision statement of the town of Southern Shores land use plan states, the desired plan for the future is to maintain the existing community appearance and form. Please postpone these repairs to Fairway Drive as designed, and let's work together to find a solution. Thank you.
Thank you. Stuart Proctor.
Good evening. My name is Stuart Proctor. I own lots 10 and 11 on Block 118, the two lots to the east on Fairway Drive. I signed a petition that was circulated to the council about a month ago that Tom referenced. I signed that petition for several reasons. Number one, on Fairway Drive, we don't need a road that meets state standards. We live on a sleepy town where traffic is at a minimum. There are many hours during the day when there are no cars that travel down the road at all. As a matter of fact, there are probably more golf carts that go down the fifth hole of the fairway of Duckwoods Country Club than travel down Fairway Drive. We don't need curbs and gutters. We don't have a stormwater problem except for one small area on the west end of Fairway Drive, and that can be remedied very quickly. Wes Hatkins will tell you that in Southern Shores, we don't build houses with gutters, and we don't need streets with gutters either, because the water that comes off, the rainwater that comes off, dissipates quickly through the sandy soil. There's a lot of discussion about emergency vehicles. I was sitting on my porch this morning, and at about 8:30, the recycled trash truck went down the road. That was immediately followed by two Kellogg's building supply trucks. Two very large trucks came in right behind that. All three vehicles went down the road without any problem, and my position is that emergency vehicles can go down the road easily as well. Conversely then, though, by destroying 22 trees in the front of my property, you're ruining the canopy that protects bikers and pedestrians, bicyclers from the golf balls that are coming off the Fifth Fairway at about 100 miles an hour, a problem that was documented at the last town meeting by one of the staff members. Also, by straightening the road and eliminating the two medians, you're increasing a problem on a street where speeding is already a problem. So rather than solving any safety problem, it seems like you're doing the converse and creating one, unfortunately. There's a lot of discussion about tree roots. That's not a problem on Fairway Drive. It never has been. I've owned property there for 35 years, and I can never remember any time when tree roots caused a problem. Granted, there is a problem at the head of the street now, but again, that can be solved very quickly. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe there have been tree roots that have caused a problem in the past. So I asked the town staff if they would just do some research and document how many times in the past 35 years tree roots have caused a problem on the street and caused a problem for the street to be repaired. And the comment was, we're not doing that. So I then asked the staff, well, there's a tree company that's very well respected in the community. I said, well, why don't you ask this tree company to do an analysis of each tree on the road, identify those that are unhealthy, and there are trees that are unhealthy and need to come out, identify others that may cause a problem in the future with tree damage, and only take those trees out. And the comment again was, we're not doing that. Well, my point is there could have been a more systematic, more logical approach to the tree destruction. One final comment, and I'm sorry if I'm going over. Mr. Mayor, you, in a phone call about a month ago, suggested to me that it would be perhaps possible for the 11 property owners along Fairway Drive to take over the maintenance of the property. Well, maintenance of the roads. Well, I've had some discussion with neighbors. There's a lot of interest in doing that. I would be glad to take on the responsibility of doing the research necessary to see, in fact, if the 11 are willing to assume that responsibility, but I need a little bit of time to do it. So I would ask you and the council members to consider my request of giving me some time to do that research and see if, in fact, we will take over the maintenance of the road. Thank you.
Thank you, Stuart. Ray Sharp.
Good afternoon, I'm Ray Sharp. I spoke at last month's meeting.
Excuse me, Ray. Excuse me, Ray. Excuse me, please use the microphone.
Can you hear me back there?
Ray,
Yeah.
this is being taped, Ray, and it has to be, you won't be heard on the tape. Thank you.
You're welcome. So I won't repeat what I just said, but basically, I'm glad lots of you came south as fast as you could get here. I'm not sure you expected what you're seeing here tonight. How many of you support the town's proposed plan? Could I have a show of hands? How many of you oppose the town's plan? I hope the council and the mayor took that in with a show of hands. Volunteerism is an admirable trait, but is based on desire, not qualification. Your council members do not pass boards like your doctor, the bar like your attorney, or submit to professional licensing standards. Each time a street is slated for repair in our town, property owners rise up, and the council is now immune to complaints about trees being removed. I personally want to preserve the town we all know and love. I fully recognize that we must move forward along a path of progress to blend the best of Southern Shores, both past and its charm, into the needs of the future. Once you touch the 2/10 of a mile roadway that we're discussing in Block 118, compliance with 2014 drainage and road standards are invoked. The majority of property owners on our street feel the street does not need major modifications, and I've walked the street with the mayor. Some of us are willing to pay out of our own pockets to fully fund correction of minor road deficiencies. We endorse the town's removal of 8 trees on South Dogwood Trail that are marked and are part of the plan. This compromise will save 42 trees that line our street, restore confidence in our council, free up funds for other projects in our town, and retain the beauty and unique character of our lightly traveled, dead-end street. For those of you present here tonight who may be unhappy with the actions taken or proposed by our mayor and council, I suggest you run for the 3 seats becoming available in December 2015. Those seats are currently filled by Hess, Lahan, and Sanders. You would also be afforded the opportunity to evaluate the performance of the town manager, whose contract expires in June 2023. I look forward to the council's deliberation on agenda item 7 and cancellation of the Fairway Drive reconstruction plan. Thank you for the opportunity to participate in the public comment section of the meeting, and I recommend another public comment section be offered prior to adjournment in the future, which used to be the policy of this town. Thank you.
Thank you, Ray. Stacy Proctor.
Hi, my name is Stacy Proctor, and I'm a second-generation homeowner of 2 properties which are located on Fairway Drive, specifically lots number 10 and 11 on block number 118. These 2 properties are at the end of the public street, which meets the private street. I'm speaking tonight to ask the council to amend the proposed road construction plan to prevent the destruction and elimination of trees number 42 and number 45, which are located directly in front of lots number 10 and 11, and they're currently in the median, which is right there. The new road construction plan calls for the elimination of this median. The current standard for tree removal is a tree that is within 4 feet of the road. Once you eliminate this median and the new road with the proposed plan to my understanding, is going to veer off to the right, which is to the south, towards the golf course, which means that tree number 42 will now be 10 to 15 feet from the road, and tree number 45 will now be 10 to 16 feet from the road, which makes the standard tree requirement no longer valid for those trees. So I request that those trees be saved. Now, on the left side of the road, I guess the north side of the road, that's going to be eliminated and the asphalt will be torn up. And so no new road will be built, which means no new deep beds, which means minor damage to the roots of these trees. But I think the trees still can be saved since they're not in the standard requirement. And trees number 42 and 45 are also at a lower elevation than the proposed new road, which means that these roots will have to grow uphill and will have to grow a significant distance to cause any damage to the new road. Trees number 42 and 45 also provide safety from errant golf balls that are hit off of the 5th tee of the country club. And, you know, they deflect golf balls, which have been a problem on that street. And as I said at the last meeting, they've already made a big hole in my, big dent in my car. They deflect the golf balls and they provide safety to the pedestrians and the homes and the cars, and also to the, golfers who hit the errant golf balls and are in my lawn running around trying to get them. So basically, I'm requesting that the proposed amendment or the proposed road be amended to save tree number 42 and 45, because again, one's going to be 10 to 15 feet from the road, the other 10 to 16 feet from the road, and they do provide safety. So thank you for your time.
Thank you, Stacy. I appreciate that. Tommy Carroll.
I'm the owner of the property at 77 East Dogwood Trail and the recipient of a letter from Rachel Patrick, Public Works Director, dated August 6th. The letter sketchily outlines the Town of Southern Shores Capital Improvement Plan street package budget approved for 2014-2015. This project is described as, quote, a combination of street, sidewalk, and stormwater improvements, and does include some tree removal in the town right away. The term some tree removal, which gives the impression of a few trees, actually involves 42 trees marked for removal in a relatively small area of my house, to say nothing about the number of trees to be removed elsewhere as part of the overall project. Fairway. Further, I have been a resident of my house for 14 years and have never had any indication of a problem with stormwater runoff of any kind. Even during the 2011 Hurricane Irene, when the Outer Banks experienced severe soundside flooding, described by the media headlines as the worst in decades, the northeast and south Dogwood intersection had no evidence of a problem. My ground level garage remained completely dry, and the road in front of my house and the town right away did not accumulate water. I question any probability of a stormwater problem in the area. This undertaking has all the earmarks of an unnecessary make-work project that was inadequately aired and discussed as it's the necessity, source of funds, and effect on the character of the neighborhood. On advice of legal counsel, planned damage to the character and safety of a neighborhood, if excessive and disproportionate to the benefit derived, may mitigate the town's authority to exercise its ownership rights in a town right away. This is the obvious case with regard to the plan presented. If the alleged stormwater conditions do not exist or do not predict occurrences that should be addressed now supported by competent professional studies, the project should not go forward. For this reason, I am requesting a stormwater runoff study. In addition, I would request an environmental impact analysis and a traffic impact study. I'm sure you are aware of the strong suspicion among the residents affected by this project that one of the reasons for it is to relieve the traffic congestion at the intersection of Route 12 and 158. Whether at one time Southern Shores management ignored, was convinced to permit the transgression onto Dogwood Trail doesn't matter. The end result has been the same. Dogwood Trail has been converted from a quiet country road into a busy highway, adversely trapping the residents as hostages in their homes. This project will further aggravate that problem. With this condition adversely affects the safety of residents, particularly the children, of which I have two. As outlined in the Town of Southern Shores ordinances, an important part of your jobs as elected officials is to preserve the safety of our citizens of Southern Shores, the value of our property, and the character of our neighborhood. By not curbing the traffic off Route 158 on the Dogwood Trail, you are failing in that responsibility. Each and every one of you is failing. I'll be done shortly. Further, the failure to pass the Mid-Currituck County Bridge project will be a major contributing factor to the traffic problem here. This is not our problem to solve. Our problem is to solve the safety of the residents, Southern Shores, and the preservation of the character of the neighborhood, and the value of our property. Excuse me. One additional thing I might mention, and I'll say it off the part, on every meeting down to town council that we've met with the town manager, he's been a bully. We're on the same side, brother. We're supposed to be on the same side. Don't be a bully, all right? Know you have a job to do. Listen to us. Let's get the job done. Move forward in the same direction. Fair enough. I know you have a job.
Thank you, Tommy. Al Ewing.
Good evening, Mayor, Council. My name's Al Ewing, and I live at 187 South Dogwood Trail. I'm kind of at a loss now for what Tommy just came up with. I just wanted to clarify a few things that maybe some people don't know if they haven't followed this all along. We're hearing all of this about the 4-foot limit. Okay, we're saying they're taking the trees out 4 feet back from the asphalt, the new construction. Okay, if you look at the plans real well and come out and take a look at the trees, there's over half of the trees or 3/4 of the trees are further back than 4 feet. They're turning around and saying, I had a meeting with, talked to Mr. Aniloff, the engineer, and he explained that, oh, it's stormwater problem, and this tree has to come out because might damage the roots or so forth and so on. Okay? To me, I lived at that, I own that house for 23 years. Like Tommy says, there's never been a stormwater problem. Okay? Now, the town is taking our taxpayer money to fix a road, and Joe said, our engineer, that when they repair the road or replace the road, they could be creating a stormwater problem. So you're taking our taxpayer money to create a problem that you have to take out a bunch more trees and spend our taxpayer money to fix the problem they created. Then, with, let's say, Mr. Barker, his area would be totally decimated. It was suggested, in a conversation with me, not maybe with Mr. Barker, that after this is over, well, he could turn around and plant a screen or do something. So now he, as a taxpayer, has to take more money out of his pocket to fix the problem that the town created in the beginning. It just doesn't make any sense. And just to end this, you know, many years ago when my wife and I decided to buy in the town of Southern Shores, like so many of us, we loved it. The canopied roads, they're very quiet. We didn't have all this traffic yet. And to tell you the truth, I never thought that in my retirement, after I worked like so many others here for so many years and put in 40+ years of hard labor, I'd be here, sitting here, talking at a podium to defend that my and my wife's dream, my kids and my grandkids' dream would just be crushed because the town wants to put in a stormwater drain. Thank you.
Thank you, Al. Joe Van Giesen.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Town Council. I would like to address two concerns regarding the process employed for streets capital budget and design policies for the impending capital street improvement projects. These two concerns are transparency and scope. Regarding transparency, I am concerned about the lack of transparency in the communications by the town regarding the north, south, and east Dogwood intersection project. There have been no public hearings or requests from the town for comment from Southern Shore citizens on this project. The town manager has made only brief comment at the May Town Council meeting that the capital budget line item represented 24% of the overall 2014 budget. There was no discussion by the Town Council about the capital budget at the May Town Council meeting. I feel that a line item of $1.4 million deserves more than a passing comment. I think it deserves discussion. There was no discussion or presentation of the detailed capital budget prior to the 2014 budget approval at the June council meetings. In spite of this lack of attention, the north, south, and east Dogwood intersection project is moving forward with a vote scheduled later tonight on the contractor proposals. The list of capital projects for 2014 was not posted on the town website until the past few days. Because of the late posting, I was able to obtain the streets, bridges, and canal capital budgets only through a written request. The bid package for the north, south, and east Dogwood intersection project was prepared before any communication with affected property owners or the Southern Shores community at large. The affected property owners bordering the Dogwood intersection were not notified in writing of the project until 1 or 2 days before the bid package was released to the bidders. In fact, the first information that indicated the project scope would be greater than just an in-kind repair was when the city employees were marking the trees for removal. The drawings defining the design for the intersection improvement were not made available to the citizens until 2 days before the bid package was released. By design or omission, and I'm not sure which, this failure to communicate by the town administration held the details of the north, south, and east Dogwood intersection capital project hidden from the citizens of Southern Shores. My second concern is the scope of the capital improvement street projects. The north, south, east Dogwood intersection project was described in the capital budget as asphalt failure. In contrast to this simple yet vague description, the drawings issued for the project describe a complete redesign that expands the intersection infrastructure, including removal of more than 40 trees, the addition of curbs, a water runoff control system, and a sidewalk, which I believe is going to be voted on this evening to be removed from the project. This intersection and adjacent properties, the scope of this project is way out of proportion to the need. This intersection and adjacent properties have experienced no flooding, erosion, or other rain runoff problems. There is no tree root upheaval damage. There have been no accidents during my 17 years of ownership 2 doors down from the intersection, other than one single car collision with a tree that used to be in the center of the road and has now been removed. Compared to the $25,000 budgeted for this project, the $179,000 and $75,000 and $84,000 budgeted for the Yopon Lane, Pintail Court, and Scuppernong Lane, all to be unrealistically large for such short, dead-end streets. The Town Council, Town Manager, Town Planner, and Public Works Department have become the euphemistic hammer that sees every project as a golden nail. I would encourage you all, it appears that the employees of the town of Southern Shores are dictating unnecessarily outsized scopes, designs, and budgets for capital street improvements with the benign consent of the town council that appears to be losing touch with the community. I encourage you all to read the 2012 Coastal Areas Management Act Land Use Project for Southern Shores, Chapter 2, Section A, Vision Statement. Also, please refer to Chapter 3, Section D, Transportation Systems. And finally, I wish you would read the Town Code, Chapter 20, Motor Vehicles and Traffic, Section 20-142, Purposes. I recommend that you table the agenda items regarding proposals on the Dogwood Trail intersection and Fairway Drive projects until you have read or reread these references. I request that the north-south-east Dogwood Trail, Dogwood intersection project be suspended until public hearings are convened. Thank you.
Thank you. Dave Barker.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and council, and even I'll say good evening to the town manager. He didn't think I was going to speak to him, but I did. I live at 226 North Dogwood, and my property is lower than any other property, I think, in Southern Shores. Bought the house almost 10 years ago. We've lived here a little over 5 years. We've never had a water problem. And all the trees that are going to be removed from the section of my property is dead-ended from North Dogwood. When you come to the stop sign, you're looking right at my house. And with 8,000 automobiles coming through there every day on the weekends, you can't sleep, you can't sit outside, you can't do anything. So what kind of barrier am I going to have? What's that going to do to the neighborhood? The neighborhood is not properly patrolled by the police department on the weekends. Everybody knows that. They put a dummy car out, doesn't do any good. Nobody stops at the stop sign. And there's only been the one accident that hit the tree, but the tree was not supposed to be removed. And I was at the town council meeting when our previous mayor said that it would not be removed because it was a landmark. And then the accident happened. 2 days later, the tree was down. But we don't have a water drainage problem there. Even when Irene came through and there was plenty of damage on the sound side, I had no water in my front yard. I had a little water in the backyard from the canal overflowing, but no water at all on my front side of the property. We can't get answers when we speak in front of the council. We never get feedback. We don't get emails. We don't get letters. And if I had not have talked to a man that was surveying, we would not be in this situation now because the bids would be out and it would be a done deal. But I went to the building department. I looked at the plans. I made copies. And then I started the ball rolling. So blame me, folks. I started it. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dave. David Schrader, another Dave.
Good evening, Mayor, members of the council. My name is David Schrader. My wife and I have lived at 273 North Dogwood for the past 13 years. We moved here because we chose this town and neighborhood for its character, environment, and privacy. One drive up Dogwood Trail one day was all it took to let us know we wanted to live here. The road projects under discussion here have been repeatedly characterized as repairs to the road surface. It was not until August 20th that I learned from a neighbor of the more ambitious plans that included the removal of many trees, the installation of a 100-foot sidewalk to nowhere, and as well as gutters, drains, and swales to deal with runoff and sedimentation problems. Since there currently are no runoff or sedimentation problems with the current road configuration, one can only assume that these are necessary to deal with new problems that will be created by the new construction. The Dogwood project has been represented as being within the footprint of the current paved surfaces, yet one tree slated for removal is exactly 19 feet away from the current pavement edge and 3 feet above grade. So this makes it sound as if there's going to be a great deal more grading and groundwork done. I've been told these projects are to improve public safety by improving response times. This happens to be an area in which I'm an expert. In addition to 12 and a half years at the Southern Shores Volunteer Fire Department, I've had a 40-year career in public safety, including fire, EMS, and law enforcement. I now make my living as a consultant to state and local governments on issues of improvement of performance and response times throughout North America. I've also provided expert witness testimony on these subjects in several states. In my expert opinion, the assertions of public safety need for these two projects are incorrect. The public safety claim is likely being used as a red herring to intentionally mislead the public. If this town really wanted to improve response times and the reliability of services, it should divert the funds that are earmarked for these projects and give them to the police department and the fire department to improve staffing. During my more than 12 years with the Southern Shores Fire Department, I never witnessed nor heard of any delay or difficulty in response due to flooding or road conditions on either Dogwood or Fairway drives. In fact, the only traffic accident I can recall was previously mentioned when an inebriated individual hit the tree that was in the middle of the road. Well, the tree's gone and no amount of road construction can affect drunk driving. Since there's no public safety need and there are no safety, runoff, or sedimentation needs, I ask the council to clearly articulate exactly what problem you're trying to solve by spending a lot of money. Please don't destroy this beautiful town by making it look like a New Jersey suburb. In closing, this is more than an issue of losing a few or even 100 trees. It is about changing the nature and character of a town in which we choose to live and invest. It is about the freedom to live here without being molested or having our property values affected by local government that feels like it just has to do something. We ask you to delay these projects and ask for a suspension of the projects while they're further studied. We'll be watching to see how you vote on the matter so we can take steps to make sure in the future that we have a town council and town management that support and represent the interests of the citizens. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, David. Thank you, David. John Minnick.
Good evening. My name's John Minnick. I live at 272 North Dogwood Trail. I'm the one who talked to Dave, and I didn't take any offense by you cutting on New Jersey, but I'm originally from New Jersey. I've lived here in town for about 5 years. Drawn to the town for many of the same reasons that other people were. My personal perspective on this is, you know, I love trees as much as the next guy, but I really see this as an issue of citizens having the free right to prioritize what's important to them in their lives. Let's face it, if emergency response time was a primary factor for me selecting where I live with my family, I wouldn't live on the Outer Banks, let alone in Southern Shores. We're all big boys and girls. We understood the choices that we made when we made them, and we chose to live here for a reason. And as much as I appreciate and respect the fact that the town council is trying to make choices for us that'll make us safer, I would tell you that you can't engineer every solution to a safer outcome. Things are just going to happen, and we should be free to make the choices about making the priorities about what's most important to us and what isn't. And for me personally, what I prioritize is the natural beauty of the community that I live in, the very unique nature of the streets. I mean, I look at some of the projects that have been done already, and I will tell you that I look at those streets and I think they could be anywhere. But I look at my street and I think it could only be here. I really think that it's a tremendous mistake to just push these concerns aside for the sake of leading us down a path that we're on this path because since 2008 we said this is what we're going to do. And here we go. We got the money to spend, we got the budget plan in place, and we're going to do it. And look around you. Look at the people who are here to tell you this is not the right thing to do. So maybe in a unique way, I'm here to say that, you know, this evening provides a real opportunity for this town and for this town council. It provides an opportunity for you guys to lead us in a direction that gets us where everyone can be happy, because that direction does, or that solution does exist. I think there's been a lack of communication up till now. I don't think anyone in this room thinks nothing needs to be done on any of these roads, but we also think that the current plans as they exist are wildly unpopular, and that's for a reason. We don't think they make sense, and I think we all have pretty good reason. I won't rehash all those, you know, as to why we think that. So I guess lastly, I would ask the town council, take this opportunity to lead. Take this opportunity for us to find a more amicable and better solution, and I'm pretty sure I can tell you it'll also be more wildly popular. Thank you.
Thank you, John. Doug Bolter.
Mr. Mayor, I'm going to speak on a different subject. If you'd like to proceed with the Fairway and Dogwood people, I'll speak at the end.
That's fine. Thank you. Louise Barrow.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I don't have any notes. I live on Sassafras Lane. My name's Louise Barrow. I've lived there since '99. Today, I really took a look at East Dogwood, North Dogwood, South Dogwood. I walk down there very frequently, and I couldn't believe my eyes when I was counting more than 30 trees slated for absolute removal. The total canopy in that area will be completely gone. It is a beautiful area. Those trees are gorgeous. There are 100-year-old plus trees, plus the young ones that are coming up. I cannot believe that arbitrarily this has gone through and over the 4-foot limit, and I respectfully ask that you please reconsider how you spend our tax dollars to make such a boulevard out of what is a beautiful wooded canopy that is wide open now that that tree is gone in the middle for whatever reason. That is a beautiful road. Dogwood is beautiful. And please don't upset the apple cart. Think of a better way to spend our money. Please reconsider. I beg you, please reconsider. Thank you.
Thank you, Louise. Terry Vandermeide. Sam Williams.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, Town Council. My name is Sam Williams. I live in 109 Pudding Pan Lane. Like many of the folks have spoken today, I believe that Southern Shores trees is one of the really appealing things to the town. And I'm all for supporting saving trees. And, but the other thing that I'm also supportive of is improving the town roads. The town roads are getting old. They need to be replaced. And several years ago, as you know, the town started on the process of upgrading some of these roads. Every one of these roads that needed to be upgraded, trees were lost. But if you can remember Potoskeet and the one end of Chickahawk, those roads still, I think, look very nice, but they don't have maybe as much of a canopy as they used to. But in upgrading these roads, I think that the council needs to consider several things. One is safety. Fire, ambulance, the number of cars that move down these streets at a time. The other thing that you may not think about, but in talking with some of the residents along the end of Chickahawk, one of my friends had the opportunity to take an ambulance ride on one of these rough roads, and he thought the ambulance ride was going to kill him because of the roughness of the road. The other thing that is not considered by many people is as trees age, the roots get bigger, and so roads now may be fine, but in 5 years or 10 years, the roads may not be fine. Stormwater is a problem. It may not be a problem in certain spots that we've discussed tonight, but stormwater is something that I think when we rebuild these roads that we really have to consider. The other thing that I think has to be considered by not only the council, but also the residents in this town is the right-of-way. The right-of-ways in this town are not straight lines. So as one resident indicated earlier, it was going to be a straight line road. Well, the right-of-ways are not straight lines in this town. The other thing, that the roads are not uniformly in the middle of the right-of-ways. So you may have a right-of-way that the road is right next to the edge of the right-of-way, and there is a tree between the road and the edge of that right-of-way. So, you know, it can be confusing unless you know exactly where the right-of-ways are. The other thing, most of the residents in this town, as far as right-of-ways go, have put things like flower gardens and you know, lines for water, for irrigating in the right-of-way. And then when something happens and you have to do work in the right-of-way, they're not happy because that happens. Future actions. I think that the council needs to consider future actions, although it's going to take a long time to repair the roads in this town, and many of us will not be here. Let's hope we moved and not have passed. But I think that we have to look at the types of road that we looked at. I think that the dead-end roads need to be treated differently than the through roads. And if you think about Dogwood, and it has become a through road in the summer, that's because of GPSs and rental companies suggesting that they can miss the big intersection by cutting down Dogwood. But sooner or later, the Dogwood is going to have to be repaired. And there are stormwater issues along parts of Dogwood, I assume. The other thing is that shortly, the council will be presented with a bike and pedestrian plan that a committee of residents have put together. And one of the things in looking at a draft that is very clear is that along Dogwood, there are no sidewalks. So the statement about the intersection and the sidewalk to nowhere, I see as just a first piece in that. Otherwise, walking and bicycling along streets like Dogwood are impossible. And it's a safety issue, particularly for the kids, the younger kids, if they are going to the Kitty Hawk school. My proposal is for dead-end streets that the town repair the road surfaces, rebuild if necessary, and look at the stormwater issue and put stormwater things. But don't worry about the sidewalks on these dead-end streets. one of the charms in Southern Shores is you can walk along these streets, you can talk to neighbors, you can bicycle, it's not a problem. Through streets is a different issue. I think that we need to look at the road repairs, rebuilds, the stormwater, and the sidewalks. And it's going to cause a lot of destruction of, or removal of trees. To get down to the specifics for tonight, Fairway, if it's not a safety issue, if you can get an ambulance and a fire truck through there in the times that they need to be, yeah, garbage trucks can go a little slower, maybe other delivery trucks a little bit slower, but I think if you talk with the fire chief and talk about the safety issues, and if it's not a safety issue, I think we ought to eliminate from the upgrade plan for the roads for Southern Shores, we ought to eliminate Fairway from the 2014-2015 budget year and move that money to other projects. And along with that, tonight we heard that some of the Fairway residents are willing to look at paying for those repairs themselves. I think that ought to be pursued if they are willing to do it, but I think a deadline needs to be given so that they can get back to the town to know if they are going to take care of these improvements. As far as the golf balls, you can take care of the trees and require the country club to put in a vegetation screen. There's some vegetation that grows pretty quickly. The Dogwood intersection, I already mentioned the sidewalk, and I'm not familiar enough with the width and other issues there to really comment much on that. One of the other things that the mayor said in his opening remarks on the agenda was...
Sam, excuse me, you're well over your time. I do that to you.
Okay.
You're making a good
If I could make just
presentation.
one last thing, is I would encourage everybody
Sam.
that is interested in all these issues to participate in the various committees in the town. These capital improvement projects were put together by a committee.
Sam, thank you.
Volunteers, the reports that people refer to were put together by volunteers, and so the volunteer doesn't have much time to complain.
Thank you. Linda Lobby.
Council members, Mr. Mayor, and illustrious neighbors, I thank you for this opportunity. My name is Linda Lauby, and as of yesterday, I've lived at 75 East Dogwood Trail for 20 years. We all know about summer weekend traffic, which continues to escalate. We've all seen visitors driving recklessly through our town, ignoring stop signs, and throwing trash out of their windows. My concern is that the town appears to be doing nothing to discourage the high volume of weekend cut-through traffic. Perhaps our greatest problem is not the roads, but rather the number of vehicles using our roads. And I question whether the projects that we are discussing this evening may be in violation of any town ordinances. I would like to cite Town Code Chapter 20, Motor Vehicles and Traffic, Section 20-142, Purposes. This was mentioned by Joe Van Giesen in his address. This article is intended to, number one, reduce hazardous traffic conditions resulting from the use of streets within areas zoned for residential uses for the parking of vehicles by persons using districts zoned for commercial or recreational uses. Number two, protect those districts from polluted air, excessive noise, and trash and refuse caused by the entry of such vehicles. Number three, protect the residents of those districts from unreasonable burdens in gaining access to their residences. Number four, preserve the character of those districts as residential districts. Number five, promote efficiency in the maintenance of those streets in a clean and safe condition. Number six, preserve the value of the property in those districts. And number seven, preserve the safety of children and other pedestrians and traffic safety, and the peace, good order, comfort, convenience, and welfare of the inhabitants of the town. The proposed plans appear to be diametrically opposed to this article. Won't this construction allow even more traffic to move faster through our lovely town while dramatically degrading the character of Southern Shores? We seem to be rushing into proposed irreversible changes with little consideration given to the people who will be affected the most. And I respectfully ask that the town consider delaying these projects. Do we really need to be so impetuous? Considering that rebuilding Tall Pine Bridge will necessitate closing South Dogwood Trail for much of next year, why don't we postpone the Fairway Drive and Dogwood Trails projects, allowing our citizens to voice their concerns, and try to devise a plan that is amenable to all of our residents? Thank you.
Thank you. Denise Graham.
I'm like Louise. I didn't come here with anything written. I came here with my heart and the feeling, the passion of everybody here in the room. And I request that you look at what the citizens of this town want. What we want is safety. I live on Dogwood Trail. I live on North Dogwood Trail. I've lived on South Dogwood Trail at 111. I'm now at 238. I've lived on Duck Woods, had a house there, and I have had a house at Hillcrest Drive. I've been an Outer Banks resident for over 30 years, and I'm aging myself. But the fact is when I moved here 30 years ago, I was working in Duck, and I was driving Duck Road. And that was all I knew, was Duck Road. And one day I saw somebody turn onto East Dogwood. And I said to myself, oh, I was by myself in the car, and I said, I'm gonna go down that street and see what people are going there for. So I came over the crest of the hill, and I went, oh my God, where am I? I can't be on the Outer Banks. It was so different than any other place I had seen on the Outer Banks, and it's very special. And I think it's critical that you, sorry, I'm getting emotional. It's critical that you look at this and preserve what we have. And I think putting in swales, putting in, widening the road, taking out the trees at East Dogwood and Dogwood, removing the middle islands on Dogwood, on Fairway, seem totally unnecessary. There's the house, I think it's house number 118 at the, it'd be the southeast corner of Dogwood. That particular house, the trees that are slated, they've got to be from the road here, they've got to be 10 feet back. And I don't understand why the ladies who live in that house have to have their house exposed to the cars on Saturday and Sunday when, as somebody said, 8,000 cars come through, which is probably not a ridiculous number by any means. And that road has become central to getting to Duck and to Corolla, and that should be stopped. We've had that discussion before. I've sat in front of the council before, I think it's been 4 years now, when we were told there's nothing you can do about it. There's nothing we can do because it's a state-maintained road. And I've been told differently, that it's not maintained by the state, so I don't really know what the status is of Dogwood Trail other than it's my neighborhood, it's his neighborhood, it's everybody's neighborhood, it's all of our neighborhoods. And I just ask that you reconsider. There's nothing wrong with saying, you know what, maybe we made a mistake. Maybe we should reconsider. Maybe everybody in this room knows what they're talking about. That's all I have to say.
Thank you. Thank you. I have Terry Vandermott on my list next. Do you wish to speak now? You don't want to speak at all? Okay, thank you. I want to come back and make sure. And Churchma, yes, I almost able to say it. 69 Hickory Trail.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of the Town Council, Mr. Rasco, friends, neighbors, residents of Southern Shores. My name is Ann Scherdsma. I live at 69 Hickory Trail. I have a memory of Southern Shores going back to the late 1960s when my father, as David knows, my parents built the first house on pilings in Southern Shores. 174 Ocean Boulevard. I can tell you people were not pleased. They did not want any houses on pilings. They were very happy with their flat tops. I would like to begin addressing the issues by telling you that 25 people were turned away this evening, told that they could not attend this meeting. Public meeting, they were turned away, and I was going to be one of them until I said, oh, I'll speak, and I got in the door. So they wanted me to draw attention to the fact that you are excluding people. There should have been a larger venue for this meeting. You need to access the voice of this community. And frankly, I am appalled at what you're doing. I've known this neighborhood, this community, for nearly 50 years. I've lived in it for 20 years. I have a 90-year-old mother who's living at North Dogwood Trail. I can tell you for a fact there's never been a problem with response of emergency vehicles. The Southern Shores Volunteer Fire Department is superb. So is the Dare County EMS. I've never had a problem. I have a 90-year-old mother there now and I'm very concerned about her safety should you close that Tall Pine Bridge for 6 to 9 ungodly months and clog up the roads so that if I have to call 911, no one can reach my mother. I also had an 89-year-old father who was quite a pistol on this beach until February 27th when we lost him. And every time I called EMS and the volunteer department, fire department for him, there was rapid response. This is a smokescreen. I don't understand what you're doing and why you are moving so fast. What is the hurry? We have had these problems for quite some time. Nobody has done anything about the cut-through traffic. Nothing. I attended a meeting in Idlet back in 1998 to champion for that non-existent bridge that will never be funded. 1998, I spoke about the traffic cutting through Southern Shores. At that time, I was living on South Dogwood Trail. I now live on Hickory Trail, and I'm right on the Speedway. I can tell you exactly when the traffic starts and when it ends and how many people run the stop signs. I can give you all the data if you choose to know it, if you want to learn it. Do you really want to hear from your residents? Your elected officials who answer to us. You know, you represent us. That is your honor to do. That is your privilege. And what I see instead is that you've launched a wholesale assault on the neighborhood without asking the residents if they care what you think. I don't understand it. I really don't. I've been party to a number of disputes in past years. I've heard people discuss issues, and there's always been a give and take. There's always been discussion, many hearings, many opportunities to comment. not a rush to judgment like I'm seeing here now. And like I said, I'm actually quite saddened because I've known this community for so long, long before it was a town, long before most people even knew it existed. Do not disparage this community. Think, go thoughtfully, more deliberatively. Take your time. I assume you're all reasonable, intelligent people. Slow down. And please, think about those of us who live here and listen. Thank you so much for listening to me tonight.
Thank you, Ann.
There's the gentleman that had a different issue.
Different issue.
Doug Bolter.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Excuse me, members of the council. I'm Doug Bolter. I am the homeowner at 5 Ocean View Loop. That's the bottom of Ocean View Loop, right on the circle. I don't want to talk about any of the Dogwood or other road projects that are coming up because I know nothing about them except in a general way, and you've heard people who live there talk to you already. I want to talk to you a little bit. I talked to you in the spring about possible problems that might occur with the construction or the rebuild of the circle down at our end of the loop. I'd now like to give you some feedback on how that worked out. To give members of the audience some perspective, we were desperate for this work to be done. The trash trucks could not get around Ocean View Loop Circle. They would come in at 3:30 in the morning, go forward, back, trying to pick up they had trash for the 5 houses on the loop. It was horrible. The road had been degraded, possibly by tree roots, but also because the trash trucks and other heavy trucks turned around on the loop and destroyed the asphalt in such a way that essentially everyone was driving half on asphalt, half on sand. I wrote the previous mayor asking, please, that something would be done. Everybody who lived on that circle wanted something to be done and were willing to do landscaping on our own if we could. Now the loop has been, or the circle at the end of the loop has been fixed. Members of the council, thank you. It looks great. Trash trucks can now get around the circle easily without backing up. Other trucks routinely come and turn around on the circle. They're not degrading the road. They're not interfering with the tree. No trees were lost in the reconstruction. The drainage appears to have been done correctly. I did an unscientific experiment with a basketball, rolling it around the street. The water seems to be going about half into the inner part of the circle where the live oak exists as intended. The other half seems to be going out toward the properties on the side of the street. There never was a serious drainage problem, but it seems that the work that's done will certainly prevent one. Now the bad news. The contractor, and I will say in terms of the good news that the contractors are easily to work with. They gave us all the information we wanted. I talked to them on a regular basis and called their office once to find out the schedule for the coming week. This is our rental home. We're here most of the year, but we rent it out during the summer. We were there the first week because we couldn't rent because of the construction. We had regular guests in the second week. It was not pleasant for the guests. Even though they knew it was coming, the vibration roller that rolls down the gravel will shake your house. That wasn't a major problem for us because we wanted the work done, but the guests who were not homeowners, were not very happy. I would strongly encourage you, anywhere there's construction that needs to be done in rebuilding these roads where there are rental homes, that you try to get that work done by the 1st of May. I'll just read a piece of what our second week guests wrote in the review of our property. We had to park on the street for several days because of the concrete being poured, and the noise of the trucks early in the morning shook the house. If I would have known of the disruption, I would have not come that week. Well, we didn't lose renters, but homeowners will lose renters if the work is not done properly. I would also add that the finishing of the interior of the circle doesn't seem to have been done very well. The grading of the sand could have been done better. It was basically just the backhoes that chunked it out, and that was the way it was left. The plantings were not maintained. Mostly what's there, or what was planted there, has died, and we now have crabgrass, a little bit of it. So my recommendations for the future would be look at your priorities for what streets get done before the summer, for better notification of the homeowners and the rental companies that these things are happening so they can inform their guests, and that the town manager should have the town engineer take a look at the drainage to make it sure it's what you wanted, and that the landscaping inside the circle was done in accordance to what you wanted, and if not, have some work done on it. I would make a quick mention of the situation at the top loop of Ocean View Loop, which I'm not as familiar with because I don't live on it, but it is not at the top of a dune. It's on the forward slope of the primary dune of the Outer Banks. There is a pond just below the circle itself. I'm sure there are wetlands issues in the construction of that. I think we were all sorry to see the one tree in the middle of that circle go away, and the pond, or the catch basin, is very, very deep, surprisingly deep. But again, they had the same kind of problem we did, where the lane around the circle was no longer one car wide. It was barely that at best, and often less than that. So in conclusion, I'd just like to say there are a lot of streets that would love to have the work done if there are other streets that would love to defer. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Doug. I'm sorry, yes, you certainly may. This is Ed Cowell, everybody, in case you don't know him. Ed lives on Beech Tree.
Ed Cowell, say 134 Beach Street. Mr. Mayor, members of council, Mr. Manager, I had not planned to say anything, but after listening to the comments, I've been a property owner in Southern Shores since 1959, and we built our first cottage 1959, 1960. At that time, the only permit we needed was Frank Stick's okay, and he was only concerned about how it looked. Didn't know plumbing, electrical, any of that stuff. But we chose, my parents and I, we both bought lots here. Right here on Skyline. And we chose it for its ambience and its trees and so forth. But also because we had known Frank Stick, and Frank's sister was a neighbor of mine, and I used to play with two of Lael and Brock, his niece and nephew. In fact, they live right next door to Peter's mother in Elizabeth City. But over the years, it was really, really nice here until the Yankees discovered it. But I don't have a dog in the hunt as far as the street there, fairways. Although I did look at that when we decided to move get away from this ridge and the northeast wind and move to the woods out there on Beach Street. But so I don't have a dog in the hunt there. But I do agree with one thing they said, and that particularly the two recent lots that have been cleared on South Dogwood. Looks like maybe they clear cut the whole lot. And one of them I had actually looked at one time, but decided that's the one that got that gosh awful looking roundhouse there now. But but I do have to say, I would suggest that they not do anything on fairways and spend that money on Dogwood. I disagree with the people on comments about Dogwood, but something has got to be done with that street. Under state law, we can't prohibit all this traffic cutting through, I don't think. But, and particularly on that corner between South and East Dogwood, there are a couple of trees, I don't know about this 4-foot rule, but there's a couple of trees there that must only be about 6 inches in front of that, the brick house next to the bridge, and that certainly needs, those trees need to come down. But I do urge you, unless we can ban the cut-throughs, which I'd love to see done, something has got to be done on Dogwood. Thank you.
Thank you, Ed. I'll call on Councilman LaHon at this time for his recommendation for the, from the Capital Improvement Committee to delete the sidewalk elements from both the Dogwood Trail intersection, Dogwood Trails intersection, and the Fairway Drive entry on the east side of that particular road.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. After meeting several times on the issue, the committee has recommended that we eliminate the sidewalks on both of those construction projects, and I so move that the council consider that.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Any discussion on that? If there's no discussion, all in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Any opposed? Thank you. At this time, I'll ask the town manager to give us a staff recommendation as far as the treatment of this project, as far as the low bidder. If you would do so, Peter.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. I'll make a statement that as the staff has been directed to implement your capital improvement goals for this fiscal year, at tonight's meeting, I bring you actual bid amounts and a recommendation for a contract to perform the proposed improvements to the public section of Fairway Drive and the east, south, and north Dogwood Trail intersection. As both you and councils before you have all discussed, the purpose of the town's proposed capital improvement projects have been to rebuild or replace aging and now failing infrastructure, including town streets which were originally built by private developers, some upwards of 50 years ago. Since 2008, projects have been designed with the primary goals of constant safety of all the public and longevity of the capital investment. And finally, also with the goal of continued preservation of the ambiance of the town of Southern Shores. As direction of the council, at your direction, any capital improvement project has never been designed and built for the purpose of increasing flow in this town, nor just to remove trees, nor just to widen a street, nor even to connect any two streets. As you have previously discussed, many of these streets inherited by the town carry with them the challenge of having not been properly aligned in the existing right-of-ways. And the right-of-ways which are adjacent to the aging and failing asphalt streets contain trees that were allowed to grow up in these right-of-ways over time, and which now are or will be, after properly aligned within an unacceptable distance, in some cases immediately adjacent to the edge of the asphalt. This clearly creates a danger to motorists, bikers, and pedestrians, and a threat to the integrity of the streets themselves. Based on the designs for these improvements, which were developed commensurate with the standards you have directed to accomplish your goals, staff has solicited informal construction bids for this project. 2 bids were received, one from Barnhill and one from RPC. Both of these firms have been determined by staff to be responsible. As you know, the capital improvement portion of the town street department budget this year was initially appropriated in an amount of $547,830. Barnhill's bid was $373,880, and RPC's bid was $366,690, the lowest for this entire project, which includes both locations. After negotiations on various components and removal of all sidewalks, as has just been recommended by your CIP committee, the RPC bid has been reduced to $328,248 for this project. In order to implement your proposed street improvements, staff recommends you authorize a contract with RPC. And thank you, Mr. Mayor. This is a report and recommendation of staff to you and members of the council tonight.
Thank you, Peter. Do we have the option of taking just one of these projects at a time?
We don't, Mr. Mayor. It was bid in one project, so we have that one bid amount is the way this was handled.
Mm-hmm. That's certainly an option we have to consider. There's no question about that. Any thoughts, council? What's your pleasure?
Please consider it tonight in front of us.
I just asked them for their thoughts and what their pleasure was. That's our intent, to consider it tonight. And I see it, we have a number of options, but we're going to try to discuss those right now. Don't mind your comments and your input, but we want to talk about this just a little bit, and you're welcome to listen. We wish you would listen. I'm sorry. I heard somebody say, wish you would listen.
Well, everyone just spoke.
I heard everyone that spoke. I didn't interrupt anyone. I heard everything they said. I know exactly where you're coming from. I appreciate that.
But it doesn't matter, does it?
Doesn't matter. You already made your money.
Gavel them down.
Gavel them down because we can't.
Yeah, gavel them down because we can't even keep talking like that.
I don't want to do that.
Well, I'll be the first one. I'm not going to do a lot of talking, but it's my opinion. The projects, if we're going to do them, they need to be done right. They can't be piecemeal. And I come from a world of construction and worked with contractors, and I've been told more than once, trees and roads do not make good partners. And I like trees as much as anybody else. And the street I live on, we did have a road project 2 years ago. Yes, we lost trees, but that piece that's been repaired is much better, and the neighbors all like it. So my opinion is, if we're going to do it, it's got to be done properly.
Yes, I agree with Leo. We're making quite a capital investment here, $328,000 plus. And we have to protect that investment. If we go out and try to do this on a piecemeal basis, we'll be spending this money every 5 years. But to spend it at one time and get the projects done, and get them done correctly, we'll only spend it one time. And we do have a responsibility as a council to see that the town's tax dollars are spent logically and judiciously. And I believe that's what we're doing, because we're protecting the future investment in the streets of Southern Shores.
people, and you're not doing what we want. I don't get it, guys. I don't understand it.
Can I ask a question, factual information regarding this? Am I to understand that the $325,000 recommended bidder
328.
is, the scope of the work is for the Fairway Drive and the Dogwood intersection only? Is that-
328, 248.
Is that the scope of work?
Dogwood Trail intersections and Fairway Drive.
You had originally budgeted less than 50% of that amount in your capital improvement project. I just got through complaining that you guys were not open and forthcoming about information in the project. I think you need to completely reconsider the basis for your capital budget, because you're gonna blow 60% of it on 2 out of 6 projects, and they're 2 of the smaller projects. It's actually the smallest and one of the medium-sized projects. You're not gonna get anywhere near your capital project program if you accept these big. I think you need to completely reconsider your priorities for your project, because you don't have enough money to do these projects, all of them.
Thank you.
I'd like to vote with no confidence in the town.
This is they're out of order. I'm sorry.
You guys, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. It's just not a, how do I say this, a town meeting such as like you have in New England. The Town Council of Southern Shores has a responsibility to you and to our town infrastructure, streets, roads, et cetera. But we have to make this decision with careful deliberation on our part. We don't need people banging on us while we're doing it. Just give us a few minutes to think it out. Thank you. Jody?
I agree with what the other folks said, and I must admit, on these projects, since I've heard so many comments, I made a specific drive down Fairway Drive a couple of times, and I was looking for specific things. The first time I went down there, I was looking at, if we remove the trees we're talking about, does it really take all the trees out from the road? And the answer is no, except there was one small place where there might be a gap that there wasn't before, and I'm not talking canopy now, I'm talking tree trunks. The second time I drove down it, all of a sudden something hit me that was really different. We're talking about taking the trees away that will damage the road in the future if and when we repair it. But when I drive down the private road section, that's exactly what that is. You look down there and those trees most of them are 4 feet away from the tree. Now, I didn't go out and measure them. I'm just saying they're wide away from the street. So all we're saying is that the look of the street would be the same as what you have on the private road, which looks good. That's my opinion. I'm sorry, it's my opinion. It may not be factual, but when I look at it, my opinion is that would be the same. And there is a problem on that road that has to be fixed, and that is where the road now is going like this. Between the first time I rode in your road and a month later, the second time, it was rougher. It's moving. That trunk is moving up and causing problems. And I also have heard from people where I think it was Sam Williams or somebody mentioned that riding in an ambulance over a road like that is worse than having to get into the hospital and getting surgery, because at least you've got medication then. It just seems to me that when we're looking at this, we're supposed to be looking at it from the total point of view. And let me say one other thing. Everybody talks about having the canopy, and I totally agree. It's beautiful and it's lovely. But I'll tell you what I fear, and I really seriously mean, I think about this, and I've talked to the fire department about this. Can you imagine a fire breaking out with that canopy going all the way to the top and nothing separate? Oh, come on. Oh, thanks a lot. Thank you very much, because I certainly treated you the same way, didn't I? I sat here and I listened to you. This is my opinion, and I'm entitled to it just as you're entitled to your opinions, because I do worry about that. I worry what's going to happen in that particular process. So based on what you are saying, I'm not even going to say anything else. Forget it.
Thank you, Jody.
Well, certainly, I've lived here 30 years. Same house, Beach Street Trail, 158. This town is a lot different than it was when I moved here. One of the things that I did initially when I came here, I was telling somebody the other day, I was thinking about the Maritime Forest and the area we're talking about, Fairway Drive, also Duckwoods Drive. And in 1985, I helped move some of David Stick's materials from his basement to Roanoke Island in preparation of them creating the History Center there. And I thought the guy in front of me was nuts when here we were traveling in two state pickup trucks, and he takes a ride off of 158 right into the woods. And the woods at that time, 30 years ago, were so sparse that we drove through the woods without a road to David Stick's house, approximately through the area where Duckwoods Drive is now. So I'll give you an idea of how sparse it was. There were some nice live oaks in there. There were other trees, obviously larger trees, but most of the trees in that area were actually in their more formative years, as saplings are slightly larger. Just to give you some concept of what things were like 30 years ago. You know, there's some 80-year-old trees there, but not all of them. The other thing that I didn't think I was going to get into, but I thought I'd mention, is I don't know if you've ever noticed, we've got a lot of S-shaped trees. They go up, they go over, they go back up again. That was primarily due to the snowstorms in 79, 80, and 89 that caused extreme damage to all of those trees. I've got some in my yard that I can just, I can go through and pick them out. I know which ones, the diseased ones, the ones that are hollow, the ones that I'm going to be taking down soon, because now I'm starting to worry about what's going to drop on my house. Something else about the woods that I don't think anybody here has even thought about, and that is, have you considered consulting the North Carolina Forestry Service? They are an asset that's available here in this area, District 13. They will come out, the ranger will come out, he'll look at the trees on your property. He will do an assessment. I recommend that as a neighborhood that some people get together and invite him to come and take a look at what you have.
That's called a study.
They do this on an individual property basis, but the thing is I think you'll be surprised at the recommendations, especially about things such as overhanging limbs around your property and close to your houses, and ladder fuels, and the canopy, and potential problems for crown fires. We live in not what you usually see. It's not a wildland urban interface. What we live in, and I know that you realize this, you live in an intermix. In other words, there's no defined area between the trees and the neighborhoods. The neighborhoods are in the trees. So you need to take that in consideration. I have also in the past advised councils that tree canopy is important when it comes to storms, because when we get our nor'easters, that tree canopy, once the wind comes up over the dunes, that tree canopy does tend to help keep that wind aloft and not come down and cause damage to houses. Along that line, I certainly agree that clear cutting lots is not the desired thing. I have, in that 30-year period, noted that, where houses have been built, where they clear cut the lot, that you usually have a lot of tree damage across the street. So I believe if you do take my advice, contact the North Carolina Forestry Service, you will see that there are dangers that you need to address in the town, and it has to do with the trees. One thing that I've noticed, having attended council meetings since 1986, that these concerns come up with every single street that the town rebuilds. They started doing this in actually 2005, I believe. is about the time when the town councils started realizing that we can't just top coat a lot of these roads continuously because there's really no base under them. And top coating the asphalt and adding more and more inches of asphalt wasn't accomplishing the desired effect. A lot of money was being spent just adding more asphalt. So that's when the idea came up of establishing a standard and building all streets to that standard so there's a proper base, proper drainage and such. You know, I'm one that also believes if you're gonna do something, you gotta do it right and do it so that it lasts and so that the taxpayers don't have to continuously, you know, deal with taxes related to the repairs of streets. In the 30 years that I was there, when I moved on Beech Tree, there were 7 houses. There was a nice smooth surface. That road, to my memory, was top coated twice before they came up with a project of replacing it. At that point in time, that was my first, the first council that I sat on. And I was really surprised at how my neighbors got upset about the town's plans, the way it was engineered, the trees that would have to come out, the swales that would have to be put in. So I actually helped devise a compromise. The neighbors in the back of the street wanted something done. The cul-de-sac at the end was practically, well, there really wasn't one. It was just ended. The ones in the front were concerned about the placement of the street in the right-of-way because the edge of the pavement is actually on the edge of somebody's property line instead of being in the actual property, the right-of-way. So what I did was I came up with a compromise of we do the back half and I do the front half. And I view that as a mistake. I've had many neighbors ask me, you know, why didn't we take care of that? Why didn't we do something about it? It's going to come up in a proposal again. So, you know, in my mind, these things have to be engineered. They have to be engineered to last. We need to do the least amount of tree cutting that we can to prevent modify the impact. And as I said at the last meeting, anytime we do a project like this, I think we should go back and take a look at what species of trees, plants, whatever can be placed back in the area to both provide a screen, to plant trees that are not potentially as damaging to the asphalt, whatever we can to put things back in a way that, at least in a few years, it would be, you know, reasonably within the same scope or the same nature as we have today.
Is the council going to stop the traffic, the through traffic through the neighborhood?
I can give you some background on that if you want to listen. Because
according to your last town attorney, you have the right to do anything you want with those streets and southern shores. Why aren't you stopping it? We've never gotten an answer. Answer the question. We're here. Why aren't you stopping it?
It seems like these plans are only exacerbating that situation. That's going to make it.
Exactly.
Make it
Why?
worse.
Well, one last question. Why aren't you stopping the traffic? Period. Why aren't you stopping it? Leo, Larry, Jody, Tom, David, why aren't you stopping the traffic? Period. Please answer the question. Give us one answer.
I can tell you some of the things we discussed, and we've done this, we've worked on this ever since I've been on the council to try to figure out a way. We went through the places.
It's easy to stop this.
No, it's not. How's it easy? It's not easy because.
No left-hand turn.
Oh, we've already been to the DOT to say, let's have no left-hand turns just on weekends. Because they do that in certain locations. They do it down at the, the Wright Memorial. There are certain special times you can turn. They wouldn't agree to do that. And then when you say no left-hand turns, that means no left-hand turns. You can't turn left. How do you let some people in and not any? No, how do you enforce that? How do you enforce that? Do we stop, wait. No. All I'm just saying is, you can't have a police officer standing there and stopping certain people and saying, do you live on the street? We went through all these steps to say how we could do it. So we've tried, we've thought, we've talked, we've called people.
Does the town of Southern Shores own our roads?
Yes.
Yeah, you can do whatever you want to your road according to the last
No.
town attorney. I can't speak for Mr. Gallo.
You can't.
Can we do
We can do anything we want to fix the roads and do it. We can't stop traffic from coming in on them. Unless we're going to sit there and have a police.
According to your last attorney, that's not true.
Well, I'm sorry, he's not here. I can only talk about the present.
Mr. Gallo?
Excuse me. I'll call on Mr. Gallup to address your question just in a minute.
Thank you, I'm sorry, I apologize.
Ben, would you mind addressing that issue?
Do I have a choice?
Yeah.
The question is, what authority does the town have to deal with its streets, particularly through traffic? Can you hear me?
No, is it on?
Put your mic.
It is on.
Okay.
Put it
Is
up.
this better?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Get closer to it.
I'm not sure I can get any closer to it without opening and putting it right there, but I'm on the spot here. This is not a question I came tonight prepared to answer. But in terms of repairing the roads, Ms. Hess is correct. In terms of stopping the through traffic, we've dealt with this in my tenure here. And it's not just a question of whether or not you can. It again comes back to a question of enforcement. It comes back to who can do what. It comes back to Powell bill money. It comes back to, and if you don't understand what Powell bill money is, the town gets money from the state every year for roads within the town that are maintained to certain standards and that are open to the public. Depending on how you close the road, you may lose that money. And a fair amount of that money goes towards it.
It all goes.
I'm not sure if I remember this exactly correctly, but I think you have to dedicate Powellville money to roads.
Two roads, right.
So if you have roads that have problems, a fair amount of your revenue for dealing with those roads comes from your Powellville money. And that's been taken into account. Ms. Hess and Mr. Sanders have a much better historical memory of it than I do.
Is your Powellville money being used for these two projects?
I would have to defer to the manager.
Yes, the Powell bill money is used throughout all the public streets of the town.
Is it used for these projects?
I believe his answer was yes.
Well, Powell bill money is not directly budgeted into this project budget, but it is budgeted into the overall town's operating budget.
Is there any rule we need to take the Powell money? If the roads don't need repair, if you cut the traffic, you cut the repair, we don't need the Powell money.
I don't know that that's a legal question as much as it is, money, taxes, and where you get taxes and revenue from, it's all a political question that's been dealt with for many years, and I'm not the one to answer that one, unfortunately.
Tom, if I may. I'm on the, I sit on the committee, a non-voting member of a committee, the Albemarle Regional Planning Authority, and for the, 10 or so counties in the eastern North Carolina region. And we meet every quarter to talk about transportation problems all over the east of North Carolina. And one of the major problems that have been talked about recently is the traffic coming in on 158 on weekends. And the state is aware, very aware of the huge problem that we have. I mean, they're aware that a couple of weekends this summer we had road rage of people getting out of their cars at 158 and Route 12, wanting to start fights because of left turn problems. And this was at 158 and 12, going north to Duck. And the state doesn't have a solution, by the way. One of the things that they offer on the table is to put a flyover, a clover leaf at 158 and 12 to alleviate some of the traffic. And all that we know, it's just going to dump traffic on another 1-lane or 2-lane road north. There is no solution currently.
Of the town ordinance, pedestrian and vehicular traffic through its municipality. It is referenced in your own ordinances. Is that in error? And I will bring that attention, I'll send an email to Peter. It's a footnote in our own ordinances. You have the right to do it. Now, the Powerball money and all that, you have the right to do it. And it's not being done.
I think we have a right to regulate the traffic, and we do that. We put speed limits, we put load limits on bridges, and we regulate the traffic that's on South Dogwood.
Are you familiar with the number of cars that came down?
Yeah, as a matter of fact, I am, because we've done these studies, the police department's done these studies for the last 3 or 4 years. I don't think they did one last year, but the years before, they put traffic counters on South Dogwood, and it came up. I don't recall, but it was a staggering number on South Dogwood, and not only South Dogwood. You're not the only ones that have a problem. Hickory has a problem. Hillcrest has a problem. All of the through streets have a problem.
If in fact you are kidding, you don't seem to have the answer. If in fact the council has the authority to stop that traffic, to limit it by committee, we can come up with a solution. Let us come up with a solution. At least we can propose. Are you willing to stop?
I don't think we can. I don't think there's, outside of closing the roads.
The words that I keep hearing, just one thing, it's just an observation. I don't think we can do it. I don't think. It's negative. It's not. It's been discussed before, it's been brought out, and it's always been, we can't do it. We can't do it because of this. We can't do it because of money. We can't do it because we might be considered. I remember the chief of the police at the time saying, we might be considered profiling people. I mean, really? We're not profiling anybody. We're just trying to protect our neighborhood. And it's not just Dogwood, it is all these other, it's Hillcrest, it's Seos, it's Black Myrtle. It's the neighborhood of Southern Shores. I'm sorry.
That's all right. I understand your concerns. I understand your angst over this. I have the same issues with it. I'll be very honest. I've sat in council meetings now for 7 or 8 years. I heard the same discussion. It's very troubling that we can't do more about it than we can. I don't know what the answer is. Let me. Absolutely, we can look into it. I'll guarantee you that. That's what we're here to discuss this evening. We've gotten a little off track, folks, and I hate to. I take responsibility for that. I should have just stopped this thing a few minutes ago, but I wanted to give you a chance tonight to express yourself, say what you had to say. I would prefer to stay just on the issue at hand, which is the 2 street projects. As I see it, we have a number of choices, but I'm going to narrow it down to 1 or 2 just to make it simple. One of our options is to not accept the bids we've been given for the 2 projects at this time, to go back and reevaluate the projects themselves. I should say to ask the town manager to go back and reevaluate these projects for us and see if there's some alternatives to the way we approached it this point in time. That's one of our options. Another option is to delay the projects for a period of time to allow Mr. Proctor and his associates on Fairway Drive to present us with a concrete proposal to take over that portion of the street, the publicly owned portions of the street now. If there's a sincere interest in doing this, this alleviates the issues with our having to battle the Fairway Drive, we like it, we don't like it question. Is that reasonable? Our third option, I think, is that we go ahead and vote to accept the contract and exercise the project as it's been designed. I'm frankly, I've got to ask council for their thoughts on each one of those options, and they may have other options they'd like to consider. Any input, council, from any of you? Leo, I'll let you start if you want to.
Well, I'm challenged with this whole thing. all the way around. I don't know if there's any good solution. We can delay, we can do a lot of things, but, the street, the road's still going to have to be rebuilt. No matter what we come up with, I don't think the tree issue, whatever it is, the solution to removing the trees doesn't go away. We can maybe do the front end of that street and leave the back alone. But, we've had some examples where we have made exceptions or changed scopes of a project to satisfy the residents. And now, on a couple of those projects that are completed, we made the changes or the exceptions, and now the very same residents are upset with us because they don't like what they got, but that's what they wanted. So I'm torn here.
Another option is to go to Gravy Pond and take a very close look around and see what happened there.
Yes, I've been to Gravy Pond. I've been to every one of these streets.
Everybody to come and then think about the whole thing again, modify your ideas.
That's where I'm at.
Yes, sir. In the back.
Sure. The first thing you told us, I've never attended one of these meetings. This is my first. It's probably not going to be my last. But the first thing you said was that these meetings are historically poorly attended. I've been listening to your proposals. You've listened to 90% of the people here in consensus, with another 25 that couldn't come in, telling you their feelings for how they'd like their elected officials to react. Then you're telling us why you're going ahead with what you've already planned. And I have to wonder, do you still wonder why people don't attend these meetings?
I'd be honest about that. I've been attending council meetings for probably 8 or 9 years pretty regularly, almost every session. And we just don't have the interest unless something like this comes up. That's what it is. People tend to trust us to do the right thing in most cases. Or let me finish. They don't have the interest. One of the two. Excuse me.
I think that there's a giant correlation between the road traffic we're getting, all the people that are coming through, and these repairs that you guys are deeming necessary. I'm just not sure that if we change, the equation and limit the amount of vehicles coming through, these repairs are going to absolutely be necessary. I think there's a giant correlation there that needs to be addressed. And I think that
I don't understand your question. I think I do understand it, and there seems to be a thought process that says if we improve the Dogwood Trail intersection with east, north, and south Dogwood, we're going to increase the traffic flow from Highway 158 through Southern Shores to get to Corolla and Duck.
I'm not necessarily saying that may be the case, but I'm also saying that if you do limit the traffic flow that's already coming through there, then some of these repairs may not be as necessary or as a grand scale as you're proposing.
I see that as much less complicated issue. We're the victims of what's happening north of us, and the fact there's no bridge up there, and the fact that Highway 12 won't handle the traffic. Well, that's all we're victims of. We can discuss it all we want, but we're not going to reduce the traffic flow on our own. It's not going to happen. And it's not. I don't like the term cut through traffic. It's traffic. It's people are going from point A to point B, and they have the right to use that road. Yes, David. Can you address that, Peter?
Yeah, the town had engaged in negotiations with the lower bidder. It's informal bidding, so no one was required to do anything. We negotiated with the lower bidder.
So that way the other bidder didn't have an opportunity to modify the proposal in reaction to changing scope?
The informal bidding process, that's correct. Staff in its discretion chose to negotiate with the lowest qualified bidder.
That significantly changes the competitive dynamics of competitive process that needs to spend public funds. And I would warn the council that being fast and free with the money and engaging in informal discussions with vendors who have been selected for one project and now asked to do a modified project does not sound like it's responsible stewardship of public money.
Yes, sir.
Regarding the same topic, I'm just going to repeat one thing. We had, for those two projects, capital budget total of $131, I'm approximating to the nearest thousand, $131,000. We have a low bidder who made an informal bidding process that is more than $200,000 greater than that amount. Our procurement process is broken. Either our estimates are unrealistically low, for projects I believe that are unrealistically gilded. So either our estimates are unrealistically low, and I can't understand why that's the case. We have professional staff whose job it is to prepare these budget estimates, or our bidding process is completely out of control. We're not getting competitive bids. I don't think this project could possibly move forward given the disparity between what was budgeted and what the bids are. They're almost 3 times as great. This is ridiculous.
I guess the only thing I could say on that is, I agree with you, from where it was budgeted and what it came out. Part of it, as I understand it, had to do with the scope of the project when they really got down to do the detailed kind of engineering. But I'd also like to remind you, when you talk about the whole process, there are only 2 vendors in the area that bid on this. It's either Barnhill or RPC. They're the only ones that work down here. That's number one. But number two, there's also been a record of at least 4 to 5 years that every project we've done has come in under budget. We have saved more money and transferred more money back to this capital improvement budget than I ever anticipated. So yeah, this is the one time, I don't know what the fluke was. I don't know how the numbers came out the way they did. And it did come out higher, but this is the first time I've seen this in 10 years. You're welcome.
That's factual. We also, our town manager also, with our public works director, went to Elizabeth City, in Chowan, not Chowan, but Camden area, and talked to 2 other potential bidders who said they would be interested in bidding our work, but they did not do so. So we really have a situation where Barnhill and RPC are our only vendors that are willing to work with us. Well, we've addressed the Dogwood Trail traffic issues, we've addressed the streets, we've addressed almost everything. John, did you have a question you want to answer, or your statement you want to make?
I'd just like to make one comment, Mr. Mayor, that is that a couple of months ago, I attended the hearing on the eminent domain,
Yes.
and this room was overflowing. The sentiment was actually greater on that issue than I've heard tonight. And if I remember correctly, the committee, the council proceeded to vote right away, which upset a lot of people. And obviously the vote didn't go the way the community wanted.
Right.
It wasn't until the community contacted their state legislators that the decision was overturned. I'm getting the sense tonight the same sort of environment is present, where we've got 90% of the people that live in Fairway, Dogwood, and this building is overflowing, and tonight expressing the same sentiment that was expressed in the eminent domain issue. I would hope that the council would remember the actions from the eminent domain, think about what's being said again here tonight, where 90% of them speaking, and use perhaps better judgment before just saying, just voting against the people's will.
Thank you, John. I appreciate your input. I would say there are totally different issues. That was an issue where we needed access to property through easements to allow us to do a project. This is a situation tonight where we have projects that probably should be addressed, jobs that should be, streets that should be addressed as far as their long-term health and care, but they are similar as far as the atmosphere in the room. Council, I'd make a motion that we ask our town manager to take another look at this project in general, and each of these projects, and come back to us with his recommendations as to how we can change this or amend this or make it more palatable to the people who live on the streets, if possible. If not, then we readdress it. Any thoughts or any suggestions, any recommendations?
Was that a motion?
I'm sorry, I said I'd make a motion that we ask our town manager, direct our town manager, who will, to take a second look at both these projects.
I'll second.
Any discussion?
No. None.
All in favor?
No.
Well, if you voted for it, I'll say
I'm sorry.
aye.
I'm sorry, I'll start over. I said all in favor of asking.
And I said
him-
aye.
Aye. Aye.
I'm still going to say no.
No?
No.
Aye.
And may I make one comment about why I said that?
Yes, absolutely.
There have been so much said tonight about how this is such a rush-through project. This project has been in the works and been being studied and looked at it since May. And it really frustrates me that, yes, since the budget was put together, we did not, although some of folks have said this, we did not approve this last month when you thought we were approving it. We approved it when we approved the budget. That was the process when we approved the budget thing. And when we had the public hearing on the budget, someone said we had no public hearing. We did. There was a public hearing on the budget on the first meeting in June, and not one single citizen had it. Excuse me? Oh, yes, we were. Oh, yes, we were.
Oh, yes, you were.
We don't send a letter, but this becomes a problem. We go emails, we advertise it in the newspaper. I mean, how many times, there's other ways, I can't even name them all. How many times can we advertise it to people and they just don't show up? Because I really love the respect that you've shown. Thank you very much.
There's no excuse for that. We've given you the opportunity to say everything you want to say tonight. I think we have been really damn liberal as far as letting you say what you want to say. And I resent it when one of our own council members can't say what she wants to say, because she's being interrupted by people who expected us not to interrupt them. I gave most of you more than your 3-minute allotment up here. I didn't quibble over that. The only time anybody said anything about somebody's time not being utilized, the 3 minutes, is when somebody spoke out slightly against your position.
Exactly.
And then right away you started chomping at the bit.
Right.
I picked up on that, and I think everybody else in the room should have picked up on that. Now, if we can proceed, we have a motion on the floor. It's been, the motion's been made, it's been voted on.
Right.
We're going back to the drawing board.
We're going back to the drawing board.
Mr. Mayor, if I may,
Well, wait a minute.
Wait.
Let's don't do any cheering and stuff like that, okay?
Now, be careful what you wish for.
is it the council's intent at this point to reject the bids or to hold the bids in abeyance until some later meeting?
I would suggest we hold the bids in abeyance until we have a chance to talk to the people who bid the project, have our town manager discuss the process with them, and come back to our council with an alternative solution. If it means a partial rebuild and a partial tree removal, whatever it takes to try to improve the quality of these streets, we need to address it. We can't ignore it.
And what I would say is that you have the authority to reject them for any reason, but you need to have a statement about why it's in the best interest of the town to do so.
Okay.
And at the time that you decide to reject them, you would want to do that.
Do I need to amend the motion I just made or not?
Not if you're not going to.
No, we're not rejecting.
No, we're not going to reject the bids at this time. We're going to ask the town manager to go back and look at the project a second time with the engineer, see if we can come up with an alternative that will work for us, that the majority of the people in this room will be happy with and we'll be happy with as well. I'm not sure it's doable. I still leave the option open. I think it's a viable option that should be considered by the people, especially on Fairway Drive, of taking over that portion of the street and running it and managing it themselves. I think the fear there, and I'm going to say this very candidly, I think the problem we have there is that the residents of the street want the authority to name how things will be done. And I can appreciate that. It's really nice to have the authority. I'm not sure they want the responsibility for storm cleanup and things like that to happen when you have a major event. And so it's kind of a trade-off. If you want the authority to make your own decisions about your street, you also have to accept the responsibility for what happens on the street. Whether it's a street repair or a street improvement or a street remodel, it's your responsibility. It's a big step, and I can see why there'd be reservations.
But if at the same time, if we're going to ask the town manager to do this, we need to have a time limit set that we need an answer. Because if they're going to take this over, fine, have it. But we need a time limit set for an answer back saying this is when yes, we agree. And I don't know what that would take or what.
I think we've had discussions about this. I think 30 days.
I don't know they're that long.
Mr. Mayor, there is a process for closing the street in the town's maintenance process, and it requires a notice period of 10 or 20 days. I'd have to look and see exactly what it is, and a public hearing. So I would suggest it would be a meeting or two if that was the decision that the council decided to go down.
Peter, I haven't heard your comments. What are your?
Well,
None?
I'm at the the town council's direction.
Okay.
So you set a time limit on having the constituency of the public street come back to you with something that's for real. The town attorney can evaluate that with that group of citizens, attorney, and et cetera.
What would be a reasonable time limit based on the fact that we've got all this other stuff sitting if we have to move ahead?
I'd have to defer to Ben on that.
What's the process that they have to go through?
He's
It's
checking
not
the
a
book.
process that they go through. You can go through the process without their permission. It's usually better taken if they would like it to happen. So the process essentially is that you have to advertise and send notices, and then have a hearing, and then adopt a resolution and close the street, and that ends your maintenance duties on the street. In this particular case, where it's a easement right-of-way, it divides ownership typically between the two outside folks. In this particular case, since you own the fee to the roads, it's likely that you would still own it. So you may wish to address that in some way.
That's the question I had. If we still own it,
You're not talking about an abandonment.
Well, there is no technical.
is there any transfer of title to, say, to the Fairway Association?
Yes.
In the case of a fee simple ownership of a road, it's a multi-step process. The closure of the road ends your maintenance duties, but you still own the 60 feet. And then there would have to be some process either to donate or sell the fee underlying the right-of-way to the various owners.
I have a concern of, if we pursue that avenue, the concern I have is a liability issue. What happens if they don't take care of it and something happens?
I think if you.
And then, you know, you get into these lawsuits, it's he who's got the big pockets.
My recommendation is that you close the street, that you transfer ownership
Transfer, oh
somehow.
yeah, definitely.
Good.
So do we want to set a time limit for getting a response back?
I think we have to.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I do too.
It looks like it would take at least 2 of our council meeting cycles.
So you want to say, this is very disruptive to our potential rebuild of anything this fall if we don't move ahead quickly. If we decide to proceed.
Are we talking about November then?
I'm talking about 30 days, 30 days where you'd come to us with some sort of comprehensive, complete proposal.
2 weeks to 30 days, the sooner the better.
Yes, it'll be October.
Yeah.
And the notice is actually for successive weeks, and you have to mail notice to
But this is just, this point from what I'm thinking of, I make sure we're in the same line, is hearing from them that they're truly interested in this.
No.
And then the notice period would go after.
Then, exactly.
So the period of how long it will take will include both of those things.
How much time do you need to make up your mind whether you're interested in doing this? I guess is the question I'd ask for the people on Fairway Drive.
Well, I think there are a couple of issues involved. One is how do we organize ourselves into some kind of association? Two, what are the cost implications of future repairs? I mean, you guys are talking about in what poor shape the road is in, so, that's what our estimated cost going forward for the next 20 years. That's not easy to calculate. I can tell you right now, in the discussions that I've had with other property owners, we would only do it if the town is willing to do three things. One, fix the current tree damage and the root problem. There's about 50 feet of road that needs to be remilled, and then there are a couple of not potholes, but indentations in the road, 3 or 4 down on the east end. So we would ask the town to do that. That would be a precondition of us accepting. And then, the other thing is, we have people all over the country, and I know there's email and communications, but it's more difficult than you might think. So 30 days would be an absolute minimum.
Yeah, that's the minimum, I can understand that.
I would propose that we give you 30 days to do this and get back to us. If we've not heard back from you, we're going to proceed in looking at this project again as the town manager presents it to us. And it may be exactly what we have now. We may not be able to make any changes that are going to make it suit your agenda. I have no way of knowing that. Any further discussion?
How does that impact on the dynamics of the contracting process?
I'll let the town manager address that question. I'm not sure exactly what you're trying to find out.
Well, that'll certainly be part of my job tomorrow, is to talk with the, both really, the lowest responsible bidder who we recommended tonight, to see how long they can hold their bid, and if they can hold it.
Is that what your question was? That's what you try to find out for us. If we have a time, we have to respond to it by. And if we do, we'll have to make that decision at the time. All we've done right now is say we're going to delay this till he has a chance to look at it and see if he can reduce the cost or the scope or a combination of both. That's all we're asking him to do. If he comes back tomorrow and says we've got 10 days and we've got to address this thing a little more quickly.
An unfortunate thing with the Beech Tree Trail situation where I brokered that deal, and that was the back half of that street was done completely, remilled, the cul-de-sac was put in, but it ended up, half of the job ended up costing 2/3 of the money. So the town and the taxpayers lost a little money on that job.
There's an economy of scale in anything like this.
Right.
If council has no other comments, I have nothing else to add tonight. Anyone else have any comments from the audience? Yes, Ray. That's Councilman Lahan, the mayor, the town manager, the town public works officer, and the town contract engineer. Is that okay? All right. This has been, yes, Mr. Barker.
After the decision is made, one way or the other,
Right.
will we, the people, have an opportunity before work starts
To what?
To do what, Mr. Barker?
to speak on whether it's going to be done or not? How will we know that the decision's made and the work's going to start?
You'll be advised of that. You'll be advised of that. We can have another meeting.
That would be great.
I mean, that's the simplest thing. Let me say one more thing. I feel a little bit like Leo does, like everybody up here does. I'm really torn in this situation. I think we have a fiduciary and a fiscal responsibility to take care of our town assets. And some of those assets, most of those assets, in the case of our streets, they're the most critical thing we have as far as maintenance, most costly thing we have as far as maintenance. I think our tax dollars being allocated to those streets is absolutely imperative. We don't have parks and recreation, we don't have playgrounds, we don't have anything else except the Civic Association has those things. So our primary responsibility is our streets. I think to not address the issues with Fairway Drive, Duckwoods Trail, if you will, Duckwoods Road, Dogwood Trail, we're remiss in accepting our responsibilities. I'm really torn this whole process. I want to accommodate the people in this room. At the same time, I have an obligation to 2,800 other people in this town to do a job for them. And I can't ignore that. None of us up here can ignore that. Yes, ma'am.
When you talk about the scope of work, is it possible to just fix the road, plow it all up, put the proper base down, put the proper asphalt down? If there's a tree in the way, take it out of the way, but leave the road with no shoulder. Let's take out the concrete, let's take out the swales and the riprap that we don't need. Everyone up here has said, we have perfectly good sand that takes all of that. And I just feel that would save us a good bit of the cost.
We're going to address that. We're going to do what we can to reduce the cost, reduce the impact. There are certain things we can't not do. We can't ignore stormwater. Legally, we can't ignore it. Well, you say that, and I appreciate where you're coming from, but I see it, and I know it's there. It's just you're not seeing it now. Folks, I'm not going to argue with your, I'm willing to discuss anything, but I'm not going to argue. I'm not going to get into a, yeah, I said this and you said that. Little crown, that's right. That's why we don't have curb and gutter throughout Southern Shores, because we do have pretty good drainage. And we don't have a stormwater system either, a stormwater sewer system. Any other comments? I want to close this up.
Jerry, have there been any environmental studies done at all? I mean, I found a stormwater study buried in the cattle plant. Has there been an environmental?
I don't know the answer to that. I don't know the answer to that. We haven't hired an arborist. We haven't had a storm, to my knowledge. I don't know whether we need to do that or not. I'm sorry.
I was just wondering if, since he has chosen a company for the lowest bid, but things have changed, shouldn't the bid go back out to the other company also? So he gets a competitive bid on the new way he wants things to be done?
Anything's possible. We intend to contact the lowest responsible bidder first to see, again, find out the things we talked about as far as how long they can hold a bid, if they're willing to hold a bid. And certainly we can go back to the other one if that first bid does not hold.
Did that answer your question? Yes, David.
Mr. Mayor, I want to thank you for having been tolerant of outbursts of discussion and allowing people to go over their time to state their piece. We appreciate that. I also want to thank the council for delaying this action for now, so we can further study, give an opportunity for the citizens to get the information that I think we've achieved something here, one of our goals, and I want to thank you for that.
I thank you, Dave, although I'm not sure that council popularity is one of the things on my list of my responsibilities. Does anyone else have anything? I don't have any further comments. Jody? I know you had something you wanted to say.
I have just one thing I'm going to present. I'm not going to do the other one. I wanted to mention to the council and suggest that we bring this item up either at a workshop or at a retreat. But about a year ago, the council had a discussion on, it was a little over a year ago, had a discussion on when we get emails that are addressed to all of us, five names coming out in emails, who should respond to them, how should we respond to them? Because at that point in time, we were having 5 responses going out, some saying one thing, some saying another. At that point in time, the decision was made that the town manager should be, since most of them were about administrative matters, that the town manager should be replying to them If it was something that was more political or more of a personal nature, that the mayor would then reply to them. I think it would be good for us to put it on the agenda for this council to decide how they want to handle that, so that in the future, we have some way of making that through.
Is everyone in favor of that?
Yes.
Yes.
Does that get involved in all these motions and stuff?
Right.
All right, thank you. We'll do that. Our next council meeting is, what's the date, Peter? 17?
16th of
16th.
September will be a work session at 9 a.m., Mr. Mayor.
9 a.m.
Be a workshop, 9 a.m. on the morning of the 16th. We may be discussing this same issue again. As I said a minute ago, I've got 125 people who were here or couldn't get here. I've got 2,800 who didn't get a chance to speak, or 2,600 more didn't get a chance to speak at all. And I think at 9 o'clock is the workshop meeting.
I have one more item, Mr. Mayor, if you don't mind.
Sorry, yes, Larry. I'm going to ask you all to go ahead and speak.
Okay.
Go ahead.
And this has nothing to do with roads, by the way, but since I have such a big audience, I would like to mention that recently, in the town of Southern Shores, we have been receiving, people have reported to me, and I personally have received a bunch of scam phone calls from a person purported to be from Microsoft wanting to help you with your computer. Now, if you receive these phone calls, I advise you to hang up, because it's a scam phone call. There's no one from Microsoft that's ever going to call your phone number. And you'll probably see on your caller ID that it's a area code in someplace in Lake something or other, Wisconsin. If you call back that number, it's out of service. So and the person that you're talking to has an Indian or Pakistani accent. So my advice to you is either hang up on them or report it to the police, which is what I've done. But there's not a lot you can do about it. But don't be taken in by someone that says there's something wrong with Microsoft on your computer and you need to do this for me on your computer. Thank you.
Well, that's not the only scam floating around. The other scam floating around, if you've been reading anything, is potentially getting a call from IRS indicating that you're past due or behind in your taxes, and they're going to have somebody there at your door to break your arm. That's another scam, and they'll leave a number and you can call back, but that isn't how they'll get you if you're past due on your taxes. Plus, the other thing, positive, and Biden just dedicated their new medical facility over here in the marketplace this couple weeks ago. So, and I attended that ribbon cutting. So, we're getting a little more health coverage here in the town, if nothing else. That's all I got.
David?
Not to beleaguer this meeting any further, I would like to suggest that we cover the topic of the cut-throughs on Dogwood Trail at a future council meeting to review what has been discussed in the past, what efforts have been made in the past, and what is legal and what is not legal. I'm not sure that there's probably a lot of people here that have just moved here in the last 10 years or less that are not aware of the fact that this has been the bane of every elected official in this town since 1997 or 98. And the topic of many meetings, and I believe we need to have one more. So I don't know if the workshop is the time to put that on the agenda since it's a daytime meeting, but.
I would also suggest that we include the component of fiscal impact in that discussion as well when we do it, so we can be ready.
So how long do you think we should?
It's up to the council. I mean, I believe staff's ready to talk about staff limitations and budget limitations right now, and we could confer with the town attorney as to
That's what I was going to say. Town attorney needs to get in this, because I think there are some legal obligations and the state may have on us that we may not have the flexibility we think.
As the town attorney mentioned, it has been discussed before. The minutes of the town council and previous town councils reflect an in-depth discussion on several meetings about the options at that point in time. We can revisit those, one of which would be fiscal impact.
Madam
evening, but it's been probably 5 or 6 years since I've looked at that.
Peter, do you have any comments, anything else you want to add tonight?
Manager's report, Mr. Mayor.
Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. You did notice the public that September 16th at 9 a.m. would be our next meeting. Did want to report to you that all but one of the 4 lifeguard stands has now been removed from the beach. The last one will remain at Chickahaw Trail turnout until after the charity surfing tournament this Saturday. Speaking of that, we look forward to that event again once a year. Many sponsors this year, and the town is one of them, and we are participating in bringing back that great event. It really, basically, our work starts before sunrise with all the volunteers and the committee and our board that actually puts that on. So we look forward to that.
And when does the event actually start?
That starts at 8 in the morning, but we will be working there way
Right.
before then. I did want to report to you that the mayor and I attend the beach nourishment meetings that are taking place between Dare County, Kill Hills, Kitty Hawk, and the town of Duck, and the next one will be in September next week. Basically, we're going as far as for the purpose of staying educated on how the county occupancy tax money is being utilized in this particular project, so we can be educated on it in the future, and also how it's also being utilized in other projects as well, such as down on Hatteras Island. So we're getting a good feel for not only the engineering that's involved, the cost, but the political process that has to take place as well. So it's a good thing, and we'll be attending the next one, I believe, next week. I did want to report to you that work is occurring right now during the month of September as committed by RPC previously to finish up and do the follow-up work on Gravy Pond and Deer Path, and that was planned for the month of September, and they have actually started this morning to do that follow-up work on both streets. Also report to you, as I had discussed with the mayor and several of you individually about 4 or 5 months ago, the Public Works Department did engage another structural engineer to take a look at the patch job at Duckwoods Drive. We did do a repair there. At one point last year, it continued to go soft. So we felt like obviously something else was occurring, and we hired another structural engineer, not the same one, to take a look, and they have submitted a report to us. So we'll be looking at that in the next few days and hopefully making a recommendation to the council if we cannot cover that under the existing street budget. Also, we were notified about a month ago, observations indicated that there has been some settling again at the top of the Trinity Bridge on either side of the culvert pipe. Just wanted you to know, staff is fully aware of that, and we have engaged a structural engineer to do a study of that, and they have got a report back to us, and we'll be looking at that, and I want to see if we can cover that in the existing street budget as well. Hopefully, it is just a matter of settling and asphalt work around the crane at the top again. But we certainly are cognizant of that and have been for several weeks. And Mr. Mayor, I believe that's my report. I did mention to you that if we do a study of closing off town streets, that we do need to include fiscal impact of that. So I just want to make sure that council understands that.
Thank you, Peter. Appreciate it.
I don't have anything to report, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Ben. With no further business, council, I entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Meeting's adjourned.